Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. Welcome, everyone. As promised last week, we are here to talk about some of our favorite funny or humorous artworks from throughout art history. And my guest, whenever we love to talk art history, will be Kyle Wood. Always love having Kyle on. Just his breadth and depth of knowledge when it comes to art history is spectacular. And, he makes for a great podcast guest. We love having him on. I always love talking to him. Now, this discussion about our favorite funny artworks is part of the monthly theme for the Art of Ed. All throughout April here, we've been trying to focus on humor and fun all throughout everything that we're publishing. So a lot of great discussions in the community, some great articles on the website, and a couple of podcasts for you too, dealing with fun, dealing with humor in the art room, and we'll link to some of our favorites so you can find those. Today's conversation is just going to be a quick run through some of our favorite paintings that we want to talk about, paintings that make us laugh, paintings that we find funny or humorous. So Kyle and I will go through a fun list of artworks, and I hope you enjoy it. So let me go ahead and bring him on now. All right, Kyle Wood is with me now. Kyle, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Always happy to be here.
Well, we have a fun one today. We're going to be talking about some really fun or funny or maybe just weird artworks from throughout art history. I couldn't think of a better guest to come on, so excited to have you here. Before we dive in to art history, can you just tell us how things are going for you? Like how's the school year for you? How's the podcast going? Anything else you want to share about?
Things are going really well. It's a hectic time. Springtime is art show season for everybody, myself
Yes,
included.
yes.
So I'm like between art shows right now. I had my district one just the other day, and then next week I'm doing a little pop-up gallery at my school. And so like that's fun. The podcasts have been fantastic. Arts Madness was amazing. I had
Love
like
to hear it.
tens of thousands of people voting. So thank you to everybody who participated in that. My new podcast, not new, it's been going almost a year now. Fun Facts Daily has been
Yeah.
just like I like the fun. I like the odd and the unexpected. And so like I love learning that like, hey, there are two high schools in Illinois with pretzels as their mascot. Like which is awesome. I want to live in a world where there are pretzels as mascots, and so I'm
Yeah,
glad to know we do.
absolutely. I mean, we can only have so many wildcats and, so many eagles. Like, let's get more pretzels out there.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, congrats on the success of the podcast. That's amazing. It's well deserved. We always love the Arts Madness, so I'm glad to see that there is a lot of attention on that. That's good. But I wanted to have you on so we could talk about some just our favorite funny artworks from art history on the Art of Ed this month. We're doing all sorts of great things about humor, art teacher humor, just finding the fun, finding the humor where we can in what is sometimes a difficult job. So I came up with a list of a few artworks that I personally find pretty funny. Other people may just be like, "Hey, that's kind of a weird one," but I find some humor in it. So I'll get your opinion on them as we kind of go through here. But I wanted to start with one that's kind of old. And so I wanted to talk about the Garden of Earthly Delights. And this is a huge triptych by Hieronymus Bosch. And for those of you unfamiliar, it is I believe, 5 panels, two on the outside, and then you open it up, and there's three on the inside, which is basically paradise on the left side, and then a
Nightmare
bunch.
fuel.
Yeah, I was gonna say a bunch of debauchery in the middle, and then his version of hell on the right side. And there are some pretty funny, pretty weird things throughout. So, Kyle, any thoughts on this before I tell you just a couple of my favorite things or a couple of the highlights that I like?
I mean, I was surprised to see this on the list of like funny artworks,
Okay, it's
just because
me.
like like it's it's odd, it's unexpected, and it is fascinating.
Yeah,
Um, and like, for me, it's so full of this like religious symbolism. And if I'm remembering Bosch's biography correctly, like I believe like he was a real fire and brimstone kind of guy.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like very, very devout in his religious beliefs. And I think there was something like he like in a formative years like saw his hometown burn. So like he had like
I do not know.
some serious stuff going on that like seems to have come out in that. So like whenever I see this, I'm just the total wet blanket on everything. Sorry, you
Okay.
brought me on for the fun. But but like it is full of like these really quirky, distorted looking figures, and like,
Hmm.
the vices are all on display, as well as like the consequence of it.
Yeah. So on the left side, sort of the paradise version, there are some really surreal animals that I think are kind of fun. And then in the center, it's just people living life to the excess, just like I said, a lot of debauchery. Maybe my favorite part is everybody is lacking in clothing, and there's one guy who's been over and somebody else is just like putting flowers into his butt and it's just like so weird, but I mean you gotta admit that's kind of funny.
It is, and there's also this like almost like UFO kind of vibe to some of this stuff,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like there's this sense to it because of stuff floating in the background, and so much of it like spherical in this pond. Like it looks a
Hmm.
little bit Oz, and it looks a little bit like Tomorrowland in some
Oh yeah,
very
yeah,
twisted
I can
way.
see that, I can
You
see
know what I
that.
mean? It's just there's like so much going on and so much to unpack. It's really interesting. And this is one of those things where like I always look at it and I think about like the oddness that's created in those early days, because did we even say like the time period on this?
No, this is very
Um
old. I want to say like
it,
1490 or
yeah,
1500, somewhere
yeah,
around
yeah,
there.
yeah. It's one of those things where it's like those were such days where everything was symbolic but not quite abstract the way we talk about abstract in the
Yeah.
modern sense,
Yep.
and it results in these really weird depictions. Like you and I were talking about like the Renaissance babies and the
Oh my
homunculus
goodness.
Jesus, and like
Yes.
the idea that like Jesus was born fully the Messiah for those who are Christian, obviously. And so the medieval artists had this idea like, well, we can't show him as a helpless baby who had to learn and grow because he's
Right.
perfect. And so he's just like middle-aged baby,
I
which
was gonna
is
say he's born looking like a 40-year-old man. And so yeah, there's I don't know. My One of my favorite internet things from the last decade was just ugly Renaissance babies. I believe it was a Tumblr collected different versions of just like the ugliest Renaissance babies you can come up with. And it's amazing. Like you said, he always comes out of the womb looking like he's lived a full life already, and so he's seen some things, and just the way that artists depict those or capture those are pretty creative, pretty interesting to look at, but definitely not what we're expecting from some infants.
And I always love the way the babies also have like a receding hairline, like
Yes.
really hammer it home. Like it's perfect in every way except for the hair. Like you
Except for
still
the
got,
male pattern baldness.
uh, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So anyway, spend some time on the Garden of Earthly Delights. Look that up. Some funny stuff going on, in my opinion. Another really old one. We don't need to talk about it, but by Peter Bruegel the Elder. It's called Netherlandish Proverbs. I know a lot of teachers teach the lesson where you take an idiom and you illustrate it literally.
Hmm.
And Bruegel did dozens of these in the same painting. And so, just talking about hitting your head against a brick wall. There's somebody in there literally hitting their head against a brick wall, and just things like that, and just dozens of them. So that's another old one that's kind of fun. But if we can fast forward a quick 450 years, the next one that I put on the list was René Magritte with the painting of the pipe, and it says underneath it in French, "This is not a pipe." And I love the humor. It's very dry, but I think that is a really fun painting. I love teaching it, but Kyle, I'd appreciate any of your thoughts on "This is not a pipe."
I would agree. I love the Magritte was so great with these little things that play with language and perceptions and
Hmm.
kind of the circular reasoning that's all out on display that like some other artists hint at, but like I love an artist who makes the subtext text. And I mean
Yes.
literally he makes it
Yes.
text in here because I am not an intuitive guy. I need things spelled out for me. And I think like the Magritte thing, it's fun, but also like as the teacher, I love Magritte for being able to break down these concepts for students and like
Hmm.
talk about, okay, well, it looks like a pipe, but it's not literally a pipe. It's an image of a pipe. And how
Yes.
are we going through this? And it's telling us it's not what it clearly appears to be. And so the fault in our perceptions and, and Magritte is doing that across so much of his work. Like I love the Son of Man painting, which I didn't realize for the longest time that was a self portrait of his.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
Like,
just well for those that don't know, that's the Magritte painting with the bowler hat and the giant apple in front of his face.
yeah, I guess a friend of his asked him to paint a self portrait, and Magritte in like total Magritte style said like he put the apple there as a matter of conscience. He couldn't paint his face. Um, but like it gets at that whole idea that what we see is blocking our view of something else, and like all of these things that are just so fun for students of certain ages to talk about.
Yeah, to think about and talk about. Like honestly though, like I've always suspected Magritte was just being lazy, like didn't want to paint his face and he just put an apple in front of it. So I
But
always
that's
bring that
also a
up with my
great
kids too.
dodge. It's
Yeah.
also a great
Yeah.
dodge, like because it's a thoughtful dodge. And like I will talk to students about that as like, if you're going to if you're trying to avoid something, like figure out a way to make it meaningful. Because otherwise it's if it's missing and there's not something more to it, it bothers us in a different way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to also talk about one of Magritte's contemporaries, Salvador Dali. Not to put you on the spot, but this just popped in my head. Did they know each other? I assume like they're working at the same time, both in and out of France. Like, do you have any idea? Did they know each other?
I haven't read anything great about their interactions. Like off the top of my head, I don't know any great stories about the two of them. I do love the story of Dali though, dressed up in a diving suit where he almost suffocated. Like that's one of
Yes.
my favorite Dali stories
Yeah,
ever.
he was dressed up in one of those old scuba gear helmets, like those old diving helmets, and he was, he could not breathe. He was literally
He ran out of air,
suffocating.
yeah.
And yeah, he was trying to signal to people like, I can't breathe. And they just thought it was part of the show, part of the act, whatever. And it just kept going on and on. And he came very close to, to dying there. And Yeah, I don't know. There are just so many weird, great stories about Dali that I love to tell. I love to share with my classroom. I believe he had the Rolls Royce full of
Cauliflower.
cauliflower. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was broccoli or cauliflower. He also had a pet ocelot that he loved to just walk around on a leash. Just so many weird things. But I was thinking about like which of his artworks are actually just like objectively funny because
Hmm.
there are some fun ones, there are some weird ones. That's kind of his thing. I thought objectively funny was the lobster telephone sculpture that he created. So I really, really think that that's a good one. I actually got to see that in person in the Dali Museum in St. Petersburg. It was incredible. So I assume you're familiar with the lobster telephone.
I'm not as familiar as you are. I've seen images of it, but not seen it in person. You know, there's also now, because we live in the age of AI, they have a lobster phone where you can talk to Dolly. Are you aware of
Okay,
this?
I was not aware of this.
Yeah, they basically like trained an AI model. They trained it on a bunch of his interviews and his writing and all of that sort of stuff. So now there is a lobster phone you can pick up and have a conversation in real time with
Wow.
an AI Dali.
I really like that. I might try that out, to be honest. So, not a huge fan of all things AI, but I feel like that would be entertaining enough for me to talk to.
Well, apparently, like I guess there's a phone number you can call.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I don't know if you want to put it in the show notes or if I should just say this, but Googling it, it says 722 Ask Dali,
Okay.
722 275 3254. So apparently you can now talk to a Dali.
Okay. I like it. I like it. It's probably worth exploring. Okay, I had another couple sculptures that I wanted to talk about. One is just anything by Claes Oldenburg. I love his sculptures, love his soft sculptures. A couple funny ones that I thought of. He makes the giant, not cartoonish, but not realistic, just these giant sculptures of everyday objects, giant clothespins, giant combs, things like that. There is an ice cream cone that is upside down on top of a building, which I
That's a
love.
favorite of mine.
And
My
then
students always love that.
it's a great one. And then there's also a giant saw that's literally like cutting the earth in
Mhm.
half. And so I really like that one too. I thought those are both pretty funny. And another sculptor is Dwayne Hansen. He does these life-size photorealistic sculptures of people, and or I should say hyper realistic, and they're great. I remember seeing one in person of a custodian with like pushing around a trash can, and I kept like looking over my shoulder and thought it was a real person, but no, just a sculptor showing his skill by doing these.
Do you feel as like slightly uncomfortable as I do with these though? Like
Yeah,
there's
it's a
some
little unnerving. So
right? Like there's
yeah,
something almost creepy about looking at a person with such fine detail. Like it's fun and it's amazing because like you see these sculptures and you're like, I know that guy. Yeah, I've seen that guy. I've sat next to that guy on the bus. I have inched
yeah,
my way I've like inched away from that person at a party. But like there's something, I don't know if it's like uncanny valley or what, but like
yeah,
they are
yeah,
so realistic. I'm always torn with my reactions because I'm like, on the one hand, hats off, so impressed with
right.
the level of skill, but also it makes me uncomfortable, you know?
No, that's fair. I will say though, he has one called The Tourists, and if you look that up, it's great. It's a uh, purportedly a husband and wife that just really look the part of just clueless tourists dressed to the nines, and it's a fantastic one. So, if you're not familiar with Dwayne Hanson, that's a good place to start as the tourists. It's pretty funny.
I love
Hey,
that's what you consider dressed to the nines, because I'm
well, I
looking at
mean,
that and
not.
thinking of like Seinfeld and like the Costanzas in their cabana wear, you know?
Yeah,
Like
no, I was just when I say dress to the nines, I was referring to the tourist gear, the tourist regalia. We're just leaning into that.
the Hawaiian
So
shirt and the like
yeah,
fanny pack or like bags over their shoulders and all that sort of
yeah, I
stuff.
probably
Yeah.
could have clarified. So thank you.
I just like to think that's how you show up to a black tie affair.
That would be amazing, actually. And then the last artist on my list that I wanted to ask you about, I wanted to get your opinion. I know you know this artist, Maurizio Cattelan. He is the author of the infamous duct tape banana. But he also did a toilet that was made of gold. It was probably a decade ago. So, I'm sure he's got other things too. But do you have a favorite from him, Kyle?
I think, the more I've seen of his work, the more impressed I've been. But there's something I love about the banana. I also love like the first piece that he did called, or not the first piece he did, but one of the big breakthrough pieces, strategies, where he did a mock-up of his own work on the cover of an art magazine in the
Yes.
style of the art mag. Like I love that as a way of like ginning up publicity. I always like something where it's a little bit of a prank without malice. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like
Yep.
I like people who find a way to create controversy without doing something that is harmful. Like the banana to me is another like perfect example of that, where
Yeah.
it's just fun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
and I absolutely love that. And the more I think about the banana duct tape to the wall, the more I enjoy that piece. It's officially called Comedian. If we didn't say that, Comedian is the banana duct tape to the wall.
Yeah, it's a great one. And if I can recommend a particular Who Arted episode, we really dive into a lot of his stuff on that one. So we'll link that in the show notes if you need a real deep dive into his work. Kyle, anybody that I forgot about or anybody that you want to add to the list?
I did about 5 minutes before we started recording. I added one, Nat Tate.
I am
I
not familiar with Nat Tate.
That's because Nat Tate is a fictive artist. He does not
Oh,
exist and never
okay.
did.
Okay.
But I guess like some time ago, David Bowie was having a dinner party with authors and critics and tastemakers, and
Hmm.
it was April 1st, and he decided it would be fun to pretend that Nat Tate, the subject of an upcoming fictional book, was a real person. And so they
Okay.
talked about him as if he were real. And he got like some buddies to play along. Like a biographer of Picasso's would talk about, like, oh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they were in the same circles. But Nat Tate just destroyed almost 99% of what he made before he passed away tragically, throwing himself off of a bridge. And,
Oh my.
this elaborate thing. Because, like,
Yeah.
the whole book, like, there was an actual book called like Nat Tate, an American Artist, or something like that, but it's a fictional biography. And I guess for like a week or so there were a number of people who kind of thought it was a real guy.
Okay.
But the thing I find absolutely amazing is there are now some surviving works by this fictional artist. And in
Okay.
2011, one of those surviving works, it was called like Bridge number 114, went up for auction and sold for 11 grand.
What?
So, like, real people paid real money for a real artwork
Yeah,
by
who
a
painted the
fictional
work?
artist.
Like, do you know who actually created it?
I don't know who made I
Oh,
don't
this
know
is
who made the work,
fascinating.
but like it is just an amazing thing. Like there are these pieces. I mean, presumably it was somebody like working in-house in the graphic design department at like, whatever publishing house put out the book,
Okay.
probably, dummied up some graphics and stuff like that
Yeah.
for the
Interesting.
book, for the biography. But like yeah, there are
Wow.
some of these works, and one of them went up and sold for over 10 grand.
I need to check that out. That is a good story. So I will do a little research there. Oh, cool. Well, thanks for adding that to the list. I like that. That gives me a good laugh too. And Kyle, thanks for coming on and chatting about all of these fun ones. It's been enjoyable to talk about some of our favorite humorous or funny or just weird paintings. But always enjoy talking art history with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy to be on, and anytime you want to get weird with art history, I'm your guy for the odd and unexpected stuff.
Perfect, perfect. I can think of a worse reputation to have, so that sounds good. All right, thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you to Kyle for coming on. As promised, we enjoyed that discussion quite a bit. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I hope that you found it kind of humorous, kind of fun. I hope we maybe have introduced you to a couple of artworks that maybe you might find funny or that your students might find funny as well. And as we said, there are a lot of great articles on humor in the art room this month, some great discussions in the community about how we use humor, what we find funny, what brings us some joy or some entertainment as we're teaching art. So we will link to the community. We will link to a couple of those articles, maybe a podcast from last week about using humor. And I hope that all of these discussions have been entertaining for you, and I hope that all of the resources that we're putting out there, all of the ideas that we're putting out there this month, help you find a little bit of joy, a little bit of humor in your classroom as well. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. We hope it was helpful for you. And if you know someone else who might be helped with the information on this episode, we would love for you to share it with them. We also appreciate all of the ratings and reviews that listeners leave for us. So if you have a few seconds to give us a 5-star rating or even leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, we would love to see it. We appreciate all of our listeners, and we will talk to you again next week.